All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and I'm so happy to be here to take this lecture basically. So the topic that was given to me is climate agreement, legally binding or sham, and I'm going to walk you through what I think and my opinion, and be backed up by fact and other laws online too. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So a quick question here I wrote is climate agreement binding or a sham? What do you think? So I'm just going to go around the room and ask a general, so you can unmute your mic and tell me what you think before I go right into my lecture. So I will just call a random, and you can just tell me your name, where you're joining in from, and what do you think? Is legal climate agreement binding or is it a sham? So Fatia Kuti, can you hear me? Sorry, Fatia Kuti, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, good evening. So please tell me your name and where are you joining from, and you can answer the question.
All right. Should I send it as a chat or message?
No, you could just unmute your mic and speak to me, basically.
Oh, my name is Fatia Kuti, and I'm joining from Kwara.
So do you think climate agreements are binding or there is some?
Wow. I think it actually depends on the country that is signing it, because in Nigeria now, before an international treaty can be binding, it has to be signed by the National Assembly for it to be binding. So it depends on the country.
Interesting. Thank you very much for your opinion. I would call one more person, then I'll move on. So Miss Popola, can you hear me? Miss Popola, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, let me take someone else. Ibrahim Mohammed, can you hear me, please? All right, okay, I'll just proceed with my lecture. Please, can we go to the next slide? All right, so this evening I'll be walking you through this. So this is my outline for how I'm going to be walking you through whether climate agreements are binding, legally binding, or they're a sham. So I'll go through the overview of the topic and its importance to global climate change, a brief history of the major climate agreements we have had, leading to the present one we currently have, the difference between the legally binding agreement and the non-legally binding agreement. So it's Paris Agreement legally binding. That's the one we currently have. That's the climate agreement we currently have. Then climate laws in Nigeria context. Then my final thoughts, basically. So please can we go to the next slide? So let's lay this general foundation that we have different laws help regulate different aspects of human lives, and the environment is not excluded from that. So we have laws that regulate the environment. They're called environmental laws. So yeah, I define environmental law as a body of legislation that is created to control human activity and its interactions in the environment. So for every law that regulates how you relate with your environment, what you do as it relates to your environment, you can term them as an environmental law. And in Nigeria, we have different environmental laws, really from the Natural Act, the Oil in Navigable Waters, the EIA Act, amongst other laws, which came into place due to one reason or the other. So the first ever environmental law we ever had in Nigeria was the Harmful Waste Act, which came about because of the dumping incident that happened in Nigeria, whereby a ship was found dumping in their oil wastewater into the Nigerian sea bodies. I would say over time, the Nigerians' environmental law has been reactive rather than proactive, right? So when they see that there's an issue going on and it's starting to affect lives, they implement a law to ensure that they can like patch or like just ensure that they can like protect what's currently going on in the environment, which should not be, because you should be proactive and you should actually see beyond now, which is what I feel international organizations have tried to do, like the United Nations. Please, the next slide. So I'll give a brief definition of climate that I found on the UN's website. So they said climate is a long-term shift in temperatures and weather patterns. So such shifts can be natural due to changes in the sun activity or local volcanic eruptions. So if you remember, in Nigeria currently, we're currently experiencing serious heat wave, which you can term as one result of as far its climate change, and we're feeling the brunt. For every change that occurs in the environment, for everything change that occurs with your weather patterns, today it's cold, very hot, tomorrow it can be very cold. Like you can't really predict how the weather can be, basically. So United Nations have termed them to be like climate change. And some of these things has been as a result of human activities over time, and also sometimes large volcanic eruptions too. So what are climate agreements, basically? So climate agreements refer broadly to international treaties and agreements that establish goals for cutting greenhouse gas emissions, advancing renewable energy, and promoting global collaboration in order to tackle difficulties posed by climate change. So I will draw more on the promoting global collaboration, because that is one important thing that this agreement aims to do, to ensure that states parties can come together, provide solutions which they can actually implement in their own local environments also, and then also come talk about how climate change affects them, how they intend to bring about reduce their gas emissions and ensure that it doesn't get worse, but we can mitigate and adapt, and we don't get to a worse position than we currently are, basically. Business slide. All right, so what's the importance of climate agreement to global climate change? So I mentioned 3 years. So I said it established a framework that allows nations to cooperate, divide duties, and pursue shared goals. So let's say, for example, one major goal right now is to cut down on greenhouse emissions. So climate agreements enable countries, state parties, basically, to come together, rub minds together, and I provide solutions to how they can actually do that. So thereby ensuring that they cooperate, right? And it's okay, for example, developed nations do this, developing countries do this. So, and we come to a middle ground to ensure that we have like a common shared goal, and we are able to like achieve that goals by the set duration of time that they have. Also, it also addresses the need for adaptation mitigation measures to help community deal with the impact of climate change. So like I said, when these agreements are being made, there are different factors that are put into consideration. You as a state party get to talk about your position, where your country or state currently is, right? So like different countries or state parties are being considered while these agreements are being drafted. So it helps you prefer solution to how you can actually adapt, because obviously we can't deny the fact that climate change is here and it's actually affecting everybody. And so it helps to define solutions on how you can adapt and mitigate to ensure that it doesn't get worse, right? If it can't get better from where we are, but at least we shouldn't ensure that we get to a position whereby we can't go back to having natural we can't go back to a state whereby we can't get to a state whereby it now becomes very unbearable to live on the planet Earth, basically. So and the third thing I wrote here is it helps promote knowledge sharing, technology transfer, and capacity building. One important thing that the Paris Agreement seeks to do is to ensure that developed countries are able to like share their technologies, share their resources, which is something like the commitment in the the agreement, rather, to ensure and help developing countries meet up their targets as it relates to the goals of the Paris Agreement, basically. So one primary thing that the climate agreements have tend to do, or like international agreements tend to do normally, is to ensure that people can actually share ideas, transfer, promote knowledge transfers and technology, basically. So if you have like a technology that could help advance the cause of the world, it's even if in the real sense it might not happen in that way, but then that's the ideology, to help people promote technology transfer, promote knowledge sharing and capacity building among nations. Please, next slide. All right. So I'm going to give you a brief history of the major climate agreements that we have that is leading up to the present one that we currently hold. So the work around the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So this one was created during the Rio Earth Summit in 1992, and its aim was basically to like stop harmful human meddling with climate system by stabilizing the amount of greenhouse emissions in the atmosphere. So like I said, like one constant goal as always to reduce greenhouse emissions. So like while this agreement was passed during the summit, 197 countries actually signed it to ensure that with the aim that they would go back to their own country to rectify or like bring it down into the local laws, so that they could the aims and the goals for that agreement could be met, basically. So it actually laid this agreement laid down the framework, or this framework rather laid down the groundwork for upcoming global climate accords or upcoming global climate agreements that we currently have. Please, next slide. From here, we proceeded to the Kyoto Protocol, which was adopted in Japan in 1997. So this was, I can say, was the first legal binding agreement to establish emission reduction objective for greenhouse gases, rather. So it's mandated the developing nations to cut down emissions by 5.2% on average, right, below 1990 levels by the year 2012, rather. And it's also like on the other hand ensure that developing countries could reduce, not basically reduce, but like ensure that developed nations were partnering with the developing countries to like provide basic things so that they won't have the need for every manufacturing and industrial activities, basically. So it is notable for the lack of, in as much as this agreement was passed, it was agreed upon, you could see that it did not really fulfill the essence to which why it was created, right? Because like I said, yeah, it was notable for lack of legally binding agreements for significant developing countries like China and India, which at that point in time were known or were like developing at a rapid state than every other developing countries that you could see, basically. So please, can you go to the next slide? Then we went from Kyoto Protocol, we went to the Copenhagen Accord, which was reached at 2009 Copenhagen, Denmark, United Nations Climate Change Conference. That's COP15. This non-binding accord, mediated by a small consortium of nations comprising Brazil, South Africa, China, India, and United States, right? It's one of the aim was to limit the increase in global temperature by 2 over pre-industrial level, and also like criticized for failing to ensure universal participation and for lacking legally binding premises. So when this agreement was made, like I said, yeah, it's there were no little to no commitments on the side of the on commitment on the part of the state parties that, to this agreement, right? So which moved us from this, because for every agreement for every agreement that they've made, there was always a goal and there was always an objective which state parties commit to doing, which at the end of the next by the time they are back for the next conference, you could see that most of them, some of them have not actually committed or have not been committed to actually fulfilling their own parts of the bargain that they actually set out to actually do. So please can we go to the next slide? So then which led to the adoption of the Paris Agreement in 2015, right? Which was hosted in France. That was COP21. when this agreement has like very large and goals that you can, that if we stay through, it's nice to have, and it will be like a very good progression as it relates to climate change in the world basically. So it actually aims to keep global warming wells below 2 cents, and pursuing initiatives to keep it at 1.5 over pre-industrial levels. And also it comprises national determined contribution like NDCs. So one particular thing in this was each country's goal to ensuring that uh, they cut down on green emissions. So it was every year you're expected to submit your what was termed nationally determined contributions. So how are you ensuring that you are cutting down on green emissions in your state rather? So you're supposed to submit like a report, right? Report of how you are doing it, what you have been able to achieve. So which is actually loud because of if it and you could see that one primary thing he set out to do was to ensure that this was actually binding or compulsory on parties, right? But then, in the actual sense or in the real sense, how has this state parties been able to like follow through with their commitment? Please can we go to the next slide? So he established a framework for global collaboration on climate action, including aid for impoverished nations. So in the article specifically, which I'll be showing you going forward, it specified that financial aid to be provided for, which was one thing that the other ones might have failed to do. Financial aid to be provided for developing countries that to ensure and aid them in their in achieving their aims towards their NDCs, and also in contributing towards ensuring the reduction of their greenhouse emissions and all. So as of January 2022, we have like about 196 parties that have signed, and 190 have ratified, right? But then, like I said, when it comes to laws, it also still boils down to the state parties, like Fatia mentioned earlier. For Nigeria now, before you could, even if Nigeria signs and ratifies a treaty, before it can be binding on us, according to Section 12, there will be a need for us to, the National Assembly now sit down on it and localize it, right? And ensure that they bring it down into the laws, which is one thing I'm sure we have not done, right? We've only signed, we've only ratified, but like we've not localized and internalized some of those agreements, and to ensure that it fits into where we are currently are locally, and ensure and look at how we could ensure that our aims or our contributions towards those things are actually achieved. Please, can you go to the next slide? All right. So while the Paris Agreement was introduced, they also introduced the categorized rule book, so which was agreed upon in 2018 in Poland. So it lays down certain regulations and procedures, such as procedure for accountability, procedure for transparency, the reporting requirement. Like I said, the Paris Agreement necessitated that every state party must produce their NDCs. So this categorized rule book was a way for them to like now spell out the procedures and ways these state parties could go about it. So it's one important thing it was trying to promote there was transparency at all levels. Transparency as regards what your country is currently doing as it relates to climate change, transparent accountability basically, and also like a reporting requirement for carrying out the Paris agreements basically. So it also seeks to guarantee that national climate action is comparable and consistent across all boards, across all levels basically. Please, can we go to the next slides? So now I'll tell you what's the difference between a legally binding agreement and a non-legally binding agreement. So legally binding climate agreement has like legally binding provisions. For example, if you want to identify a binding agreement, you would the laws would normally use like a shall, like the state parties shall do this, right? And if it is left to the discretion of the state parties, you are going to be seeing, oh, state parties may do this. And sometimes when you feel like it's like a default, you could see this law trying to propose that, okay, you are at the liberty to do this, but if you don't do this, this is not binding on you, rather. So for legally binding agreements, they always come with the term shall, right? And so like it's a legal obligations force parties to these agreements to reduce greenhouse gas emissions or take other steps to combat climate change. So penalties or legal repercussions may result from breaking duties, for breaking like the Kyoto Protocol, which one of its aim was for it to be binding according to the, if you read through the provisions, but then it still failed as it relates to that, basically. So can I go to the next slide? Then for non-legally binding agreements, you could they are generally regarded as non-legally binding. So like you do not have like parties are not held to whatever happens. So it is you could decide to and you could decide not to, basically. So they may contain legally binding provisions such as the need for nations to submit NDCs in Paris Agreement. Although parties commit to specific objectives and course of action, the agreement does not by itself establish binding legal duties. So for this kind of agreement, parties just commit to like do certain things, but like it's not binding. If they don't do it, you can't hold them to it, right? You can't sue them to a law court, or you can't you can't like punish them for not doing certain things, right? They could only call you out on a national level and like name shame you, do all these kind of things. But when it comes to like legal enforcement, like when it comes to like sanctions, I'm not sure they are able to like sanction you for not following through your commitment, which is like one big issue, basically, because which is one big issue for why we keep having different agreements at different times, because of parties are not just able to like keep or follow through to whatever they have committed to do, basically. So can we go to the next slide? All right. So I'm going to walk you through some of the provisions of the Paris Agreement, which I feel they gives a connotation of being binding, but might not be, right? Because of the terms and the way they are actually formed in the agreement. But like in the real sense, they're still left to discretion of the states to ensure to how they want to actually ratify, or to how they actually also want to localize those provisions. So the Paris Agreement itself is not legally binding as a whole, meaning it does not impose legal enforcement obligations on countries to achieve its goals. So it's mostly non-binding on substance, but binding on reporting, basically. So the efficacy of the whole deal depends on the country's name shaming each other to do better. Like I said, so one way they seek to enforcement is by calling every state parties house as to doing better. But like it is a requirement for you to, like, when you are attending a conference, to like come with your reports, basically. How have you been for the past 2 years or so? How have you been able to ensure that you cut down on you follow through your the objectives of the agreement, and the goals also, basically. So however, certain aspects of this agreement have legal force. For example, Article 4 of the Paris Agreement says that each party shall prepare, communicate, and maintain successive national determined contribution that it intends to achieve, which is seen in the form of the NDC, right? So it expects that state parties communicate, prepare, and maintain like a report of how they've been able to cut down or greenhouse emissions through their NDC. That's their report, and that's the reporting stuff. Please, the next slides. All right. So the UN climate negotiations refer to the commitment countries make to cut down their emissions within a given time as national determined contributions. So Article 13 also establishes a robust, transparent framework requiring parties to regularly report on their emission and progress towards their NDCs. The rules and guidelines for this framework are legally binding on state parties. So like I said, it requires you that is one big call, one big thing that the agreement is having on its transparencies. So in ensuring that you are committed to your indices and you fulfill your own part of the bargain as it relates to your indices. Well, even if you do not fulfill your own part of the bargain, they won't audit you it, but then they only tell you, they only name, like I said, name shame to you for you to do better, rather. So then also the transparency about emission provisions, Article 4, in line with Article 9, 10, and 11, expatiates more on this transparency framework, right? Then also you can see the provision of the part of financial commitment on the part of developed nations to ensuring that they commit financially in ensuring that the goals of the climate change are actually achieved. The goals of the Paris Agreement are actually achieved. Next slide, please. All right. So Nigeria committed to lowering its GH emissions when it signed and ratified the Paris Agreement in September 2016 and March 2017 to protect Nigerian environment and achieve reduction in greenhouse emissions. So President Buhari also signed the climate change bill law in 2011, which I feel is commendable, right? Because it shows that we signed the law, hopefully, right? Which I feel is commendable because it's showing that we are beginning to look towards our realities, basically. So I'll speak about the highlights of the law and some important provisions which I feel Nigeria have internalized from the agreement, basically. So please can you go to the next slide? So the agreement establishes the National Council on Climate Change, that's the council, which is vested with the power to develop policies, make decisions on all matters concerning climate change in Nigeria. So the council is also required to manage the implementation of the provision of the CCA. So the council, just like every other agency, like the NEJRA and every other like Ministry of Environment, so like they are mandated to ensure that the provisions of the CCA, that's the Climate Change Agreement Climate Change Act, are actually carried out. They ensure to like stay aloof of development, improvement in the climate change, in climate change, basically work towards policies, right? That position us for work towards policies that put Nigeria in that global limelight, and also like ensure that we are mitigating and adapting as it relates to global view and also locally. So under the CCA, also every 5 years, the Secretariat is mandated to develop a national climate change action plan. So this action plan is helps to guide the activities and everything that the council basically will be doing as it relates to climate change and the environment as a whole. So sorry, please go to the next slide. So, and they are expected to like get input from the Ministry and Federal Ministry of Budget and National Planning. And the first action plan basically was expected to be within the 12 months of signing that law or passing that law by the president, basically. So the CCA also lays out the responsibility of public and commercial organization, as well as ministries, department, and agency regards to climate change, among other requirements. So like the ministries, the department, and agencies are expected or are to have like a climate change desk to ensure that action related to climate change are integrated into their primary missions. Have they done this? We cannot say, but like it is clearly stated out in the laws. And for one thing you can hold state parties against is their local laws, right? Because of if it's your local law, if it's stated in your local law, that means you're expected to actually like carry it out and enforce it. But when you look at the provision of the Constitution does not provide for a right to environment, basically. It only states that the right is actually non-justiciable. So it only urges or compels the government in Section 20 that for you to like for the government to ensure that the citizens have a good environment that is comfortable and comfortable and that's basically helps them carry out their day-to-day needs and that they can basically thrive and live in, basically, right? But the law, our constitution, being the ground norm of our laws, does not even make it binding. Does not make it binding is not the word. Does not make it does not necessitate the government to take actions, right? It necessitates government take actions to it necessitates government to take actions towards improving the environment, but you as a citizen do not have a right to that, right? Because you cannot enforce that in the court of law. They would it's more like a secondary right, as compared to your rights in Chapter 4 of the Constitution, which you can actually drag anybody to court for, right? So, if, for example, I want to sue the government of Nigeria right now to court because of probably pollution. For example, pollution. Let's take, for example, the Makoko case in Lagos State, right? You have to sue it as it relates to your every other right. For example, your right to life or your right to dignity of human person being degraded by your not living in a safe environment, right? But you do not have like a direct right to drag the government for polluting your environment, basically, right? So which also speaks to what now happens on the international level, because if locally states do not parties do not even citizens do not even have a right to actually enforce or to make their government to enforce their right to a safe environment, basically, then why would you want to hold them to an agreement they signed on an international level? Right, please let's go to the next slide. Right, so I started hereby. Generally, international legislations is not legally binding on states that are not parties to it, right? But if you as a state now decide that, okay, this agreement aligns with your country, it's not disadvantageous to your country, then you can ask, okay, you want to be a party to it and ratify, right? So they are not enforceable, even when states are parties to it. They are not they cannot drag you to an ICJ for not following or keeping to your own bargain of the agreement, basically. So, like I said, I say climate change agreements are important. Like, they are very important because they serve as a turning point in global effort to combat climate change. Because when you look at these laws, the provisions and the things they set out to do are actually beneficial to us in the long run, right? If state parties actually follow through. But because of either one reason or the other, selfish reasons, because of the need for the pursuit for increasing yes, it's good for us to advance, right? Pursuit for increase in technology knowledge, just to show that pursuit for like different things that of different things or different interests of states has made them not to be fully committed, right, to whatever they set out in each agreement they make rather. So they like I said, they offer a forum for international collaboration, establishing challenging objectives and encouraging group efforts to reduce greenhouse emissions and prepare for the effect of climate change. But these laws are actually good. They actually have like a good reason to why they exist. But when as it relates to its enforceability, or as it relates to if they actually now do those things that they are that are set out in the objective and the goals, is to what we need to now actually start looking at, right? So how we can actually make states all states their commitment, basically, and all state parties too, because at international level we recognize and we respect the sovereignty of states, basically.
Miss Esther, you have 3 minutes more.
All right, please let me just, please can you go to the next slide? Next slide, please. So I said, though the effectiveness of this agreement have been hampered, the next slide, yes, thank you, have been hampered by the lack of universal participation and compliance, insufficient ambition in emission reduction target, inadequate financial support for developing countries, and limited enforcement mechanism. These are like issues that have in one way or the other hamper the full effectiveness of this agreement. And the urgency to address climate change requires a prompt response and cooperation on all levels, from local and international levels, to achieve the goals outlined in the climate agreement and ensure a sustainable future for all. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'll just take the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation, Ms. Esther, and I'm very sure we've all learned. I'm very sure we've all learned one or two things. Please, if you have a question, kindly drop it in the chat box while we go to the next on our agenda, as we are far behind schedule. So if you have any question, you can drop it on the main group as well. So even after the session, it will be attended to. And while we are doing that, we'd like to go to the next on our agenda, which is the GSAC debate. I'm very sure we are all ready, and our GSAC representatives are ready as well. Kindly change your name to your GSAG name. I mean, if you know you will be representing your GSAG, please include REP in front of your name so that I can easily identify you and unmute you as soon as it is your turn to present. Please do that as soon as possible. And I shared the arrangement for the presentation a while ago in the group, so you know where your group falls at. And with us on this call, we have our honorable judges that will be taking note of everything you will be presenting, and that will take note of everything you will be presenting, and will let us know who are the winner. That's like someone dropped, let the best team win. So with us on this call, we have Ayodeji Umilabu, the administrative officer, Plugin Nigeria. And you're welcome, sir, and thank you for your time for joining us. And we also have Ramat Jadesola Owolabi, the operations officer at Plugin Nigeria. And we also have the third, our third judge, that's in person of merits. Thank you for joining as well, and it's a pleasure to have you join us on this call. The GSAC debate is going to start right at 8:55. So get ready, and please, let's work with time. If you know you are battling with network, speak as soon as possible so that another person in your GSAC can step in for you, so that we will not waste time here. As like you can see, we are far behind schedule and we don't have enough time. So kindly do the needful as soon as possible. So we have the carbon capture and storage GSAG. Are we ready? Kindly signify in the chat box if you are ready. Carbon capture and storage GSAG, are you here? Okay, great. Ibrahim, you will be representing your GSAG, right? Okay, great. Before we proceed, I completely forgot. Ms. Esther Adiola, so sorry. I really appreciate your presentation. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. And I will be sharing across the questions that have been dropped here for your response so that we could share back to them. Thank you very much once again for honoring our invitation, and thank you for your time to join us on this session. Thank you. We really appreciate. So moving on, at
Thank you for having me.
thank you, Ma. Oh, can you hear me now? Please, apologies for the glitch. I had a network issue. So, okay, great. Thank you very much. Apologies for the breaking transmission. I'm going to share my screen for the carbon capture GSAG so I can begin your presentation.
It seems that this time is having issue with sharing the screen. So sorry for that. Finally, after the tussle, we are here. So by time this is 8:57, are speakers ready? If you are presenting for your group, kindly signify so that you can be posted. Kindly signify by raising up your hand so that you can be posted. Ibrahim Mohammed, are you presenting for your group? The speaker. Okay. Okay, Ibrahim Mohammed. Ramaz, please kindly make him the host, please. Yes, I'm Ramaz. Kindly make Ibrahim a co-host.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. This is 8:59. You'll be starting at exactly 9 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Are you the only one presenting or?
Yes, I'm the only one presenting.
Okay. No problem.
I'm the only one presenting for my GSAG. Okay,
Your time
good evening.
now. Good evening.
Good evening, I'm Able G Sams, special guests, judges, and my fellow greenies. My name is Ibrahim Mohammed Jamiu from the Carbon Capture and Storage GSAG. And together with my amazing teammates, we have put together this project. I would be the one presenting it by the grace of God. So can we move to the next slide, please? The next slide, please. Thank you. Okay. Well, so tonight in my presentation, I'm going to be talking about the meaning, origin, origin, and history of carbon capture and storage. This is a practice that has been, I wouldn't say old as time, but it's been practiced for quite some time now. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we can begin properly. So carbon capture simply, as you can see here, is a carbon capture and storage is a way of reducing carbon emissions, which could be key to helping to tackle global warming. It's a three-step process involved. So simply put, this is a method of reducing carbon emissions, which is actually a very useful method of sustaining the environment. Because as animals, as humans, a lot of our species do not need, I wouldn't say we do not need carbon, but carbon is detrimental to our health and it is a pollutant, a very major and toxic pollutant. So having ways to capture or coming up with ways and methods to capture or control the emission of this carbon in excess into the environment is what my project is all about. Now, it's in summary, it is just the arrest of carbon dioxide, maybe by human activities, industrialization, and any other process or work or activities that releases carbon into the environment. And after the capture or arrest is done, the next step is to transport the carbon. Transporting the carbon from one place or maybe from its source or the origin to a place where it's supposed to be stored and kept safe for other purposes. Maybe for the, we'll get to the other purposes, but most importantly, it's going to be kept away from being a toxin to animals and humans who do not need it. Coming up to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the origin of carbon capture and storage, it backdates to the 1960s. In the 1960s, carbon enhanced oil recovery was carried out in the US and in the Canada. These were the experimental sites for carbon capture and storage. Then the first large-scale carbon enhanced oil recovery project got implemented in Chevron in 1972. So after the introduction in 1960 in the US and Canada, not much was done on it. It wasn't even seen as a necessary thing to do, because I would like to pin that on lack of awareness or negligence, I don't know, but now we are more aware. So nothing was done about this, nothing was done about carbon capture and storage until 1972 in Chevron, where the first large-scale carbon enhanced oil recovery project got established. Carbon capture and storage, and also its transport, of course, was proposed by Machete in 1996. So after the capture, definitely the next things to do is to transport the carbon away from a place where it could be a toxin or it could be harmful to the living things there. And after transporting it, the next thing is what to do with this carbon. So this is where storage comes to play. Now, Machete in 1996 proposed how, or came up with how, or the ideas of on how carbon that is being arrested would be transported and appropriately stored or kept for utilization and away from the away from being a toxin to living things. So IEA greenhouse gas research and development began in the 2000s. So the greenhouse research development started, I could say recently, that's about 20 or less than 30 years ago. That is in the 2000s. Can we move to the history, please? Thank you. The next slide. So, like I said, carbon capture, the idea was born a long time ago, but not much was done about it. So here is a history. Carbon capture and storage is an old technology where carbon is being injected into depleted oil to re-energize that oil and to use it to extract more hydrocarbons. So along the line, scientists discovered that when carbon is actually being captured, it can be used to give life back to rancid oil and other chemicals. And these chemicals could be also used to perform other purposes, and they could also be used to do useful things, more like using a harmful thing to make a useful thing out of it. So they decided it could be used to rekindle a rancid oil or a spoiled oil or a depleted oil, and this oil in return can also be used to extract more hydrocarbons, of course, from the crude oil, the crude oil, from crude oil. So it could be used to extract more usable things from the raw material. Can we move to the next slide, please? Now, here we have the benefits, the proven success, that's the trials that succeeded, and failures of carbon captures. Definitely, whatever has an advantage also has a disadvantage. So we'll be looking at this in the following slides. Okay, here we begin with the benefits. Definitely. I saw a clip once somewhere where carbon was being captured with polythene bags. Like it was a local method of using wooden fuel to prepare meals. So a huge polythene bag is put over the entire fireplace, and you could clearly see with your eyes how carbon dioxide was being transported straight into the polythene bag. And when it was being captured in the polythene bag, they tied the entrance. The entrance was blocked, so the carbon was trapped or arrested inside a polythene bag. Now, if this is being done in mass, if this is being done largely on a large scale, then this is going to guarantee a healthier environment. And if we have healthier environments, we definitely have benefits. Would benefit from healthy environments, definitely. The first is it could help the economy. So if we have parastatals or bodies that are governmental or non-governmental that could be responsible or could establish these businesses of carbon capture and storage, we all know what this means. It simply means employment in mass. And then definitely the forest needs more carbon than we do. The trees utilizes it better than we do. So if we have carbon being captured from areas it's not being useful and then taken to the forest, it's going to be of better use to the trees. And definitely, when we have healthy gardens, healthy forests, we have tourist attraction sites. Can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, this is what I just explained in the previous slide. Having healthy forests for respiration and definitely tourist attraction and the rest. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So here are some successes of carbon capture and storage. Now, the first commercial scale body of carbon capture and storage. Sorry, I'm mixing it. Okay. The first successful carbon capture and storage was carried out by the Sleipner projects in the North Sea, where they arrested carbon and injected it in the banks of the river. And then the second is the Gorgon project in Australia, where they arrested this carbon and put it in underground reservoirs, enriching the soil. So there is also the Quest project in Canada, where carbon was injected from bitumen and it was kept underground in something like sockways. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So the failures I talked about, the disadvantages I mentioned earlier. Definitely, carbon capture and storage is going to be a very expensive project because we would need infrastructure, we would need equipment, and a whole lot of things to do that. And secondly, because of the heavy machinery, there is also release of energy. Thirdly, we have the risk of leakage, especially the carbon that is going to be injected around the water bodies. We could
Thank
have
you so
risk of
much
leakages.
for that presentation, but your time is up.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The next GSAC to be presenting, kindly get ready by 9:12. Who is your presenter so that you can be co-hosted?
Mm.
Isam Ramos, kindly co-host and Annie, please. Who is presenting now? Is it Annie or Diokolami for geoengineering? Isam Ramat, kindly unmute, kindly close the Okolami, please.
Greetings to judges, Islam, and my fellow Guineans. I'm Olami, and I'll be presenting for geoengineering research. First of all, we'll be moving to be checking out the meaning, the origin, and the history of geoengineering. Can we have the slide up?
What is the name?
Ma'am, I don't know if you share the slides from my end because I'm not seeing any slides up at the moment.
Just chill, just chill. It won't start reading till when it's being shared.
All right. So I can hold on my presentation.
Yes. Okay. Isam must kindly make a Ifokwe gift a co-host. Dear Kalami, you can start now, please.
Thank you very much, Ma. So, like I said, we'll be starting to check out the meaning, the origin, and the history of geoengineering. If you can move to the next slide. And that will form the introduction for this presentation. Geoengineering is defined as an intentional large-scale manipulation of the environment, the Earth's natural system, in order to reduce or to counteract the climate change. And this term was first used in the early 1970s, 1970s to describe the mitigation of climate impacts of fossil fuel combustion when this Italian physicist named Cesare Marchetti injected carbon dioxide into the deep ocean. And moving on, in 1975, the National Academy of Sciences acknowledged that there is a potential in geoengineering. In 1992 as well, the term gained more attention where it was used in one of the National Academy of Sciences assessment publications. So the publication made about geoengineering. And also in 2006, there was more publications, more publishing highlighting the potential benefits and the need for more responsible researches and governance in 2006. Then up until 2009 and 2021, where the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, included a limited discussion on geoengineering in a sixth assessment report, acknowledging the potential role, but then suggested that there's an importance in prioritizing emission reduction. So this is the journey of geoengineering all through the 20th century, which made it come to limelight as a solution to climate change. Next slide, please. Yeah, geoengineering was originated so as to bring some benefits to the climate change, as we all know. And these benefits include mitigating the effects of climate change by applying suitable technological approach to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That was the very intention for geoengineering. And one of the methods through which this was done was reducing the amount of solar radiation that is reaching the Earth's surface by using techniques such as solar radiation management. And this technique involves reflecting sunlight back into the space. And also, another benefit of geoengineering is to promote healthy living, because geoengineering helps reduce pollution of our essential elements such as air, the air we breathe in, the water we take in, and also our land. And also enhancing the Earth's natural carbon sinks, such as our forests and our oceans. So the ocean sinks in carbon and makes air more breathable for us, basically. And one of the practices that makes this possible is reforestation and ocean fertilization, which are examples of geoengineering. And next slide, please. They have recorded successful applications of geoengineering in the past, one of which is the Petra Nova project in Texas, where carbon dioxide was captured from coal-fired power plants and was stored in nearly saline aquifer. That was one. And another successful application of geoengineering was at the Slipna field in Norway, where carbon dioxide was successfully stored in an underground sandstone formation for over 20 years. So these examples prove that it was actually a beneficial technique, that geoengineering proved to be an effective measure to mitigating pollution and mitigating the climate change. Then next slide, please. So there are some ideas out there that geoengineering is a false solution. There are accusations that geoengineering is a false solution. We cannot outrightly declare it false. However, it boils down to the approaches that it's employed during this geoengineering, either the solar radiation management or the sequestration, whatsoever measure is being put in place is what exactly will declare or make it so that geoengineering is a false solution. Also, next slide, please. Also, considering the opportunity cost of any geoengineering plan, the economic cost, the materials, the energy, manpower, environmental costs, and everything that goes into geoengineering, it requires a lot of expense. And these expenses most of the times are not easy to get by. So it's because of this, it could be declared a false, it could be accused as a false solution, because these things don't come easily all the time. Next slide, please. Next slide. So I think this is, yeah. There are objective group opinions that geoengineering, the objective group opinion that geoengineering is a false solution. That's the next slide. And a group came together, and upon coming together, we concluded that there is no universal objective group opinion whether geoengineering is false to the climate or not, like I said earlier. And some argue that it might have potentials in mitigating the effects of climate change, which has been proven successful
Network probably logged that out because the slides was still sharing. And at this moment, the time is up. That's why we took it upon ourselves to share the slides. Greenwashing, are you ready? I can see your representative have been posted. Greenwashing, your time starts now. Zainab, are you there? Your time has started though.
In a world cloaked in green lies, where truth hides behind the guise, greenwashing whispers deceit, but it's time for truth to rise. Let's strip away the painted facade, expose the lies, break free from fraud, for in sustainable design we trust. To heal the earth, for it's a must. Good evening, my fellow members of Greenwashing GSAG, the Grand GSAM, the GSAMs, members of the other GSAGs. My name is Sadiq Zainab, and I'll be taking us on a journey where we get to unveil the green illusion to build a sustainable future with authentic, eco-friendly designs. Responsible ladies and gentlemen, kindly follow us on this journey as we unveil the green illusion and see how we can build a sustainable future with authentic, eco-friendly design for us to take urgent action, which is why we are all here. And here are the outlines for the presentation. Next slide. Greenwashing. What is greenwashing? Greenwashing is the selective disclosure of positive information without full disclosure of negative information, so as to create an overly positive corporate image, which means greenwashing is an act used by companies to portray their products as an eco-friendly product, whereas it is not fully or it is not truly an eco-friendly product. Origin of greenwashing. Greenwashing is a term coined by an environmentalist named J. Westerveld in the 1980s. This was J. Westerveld noticed a hotel policy encouraging guests to reuse towels to save the environment, whereas in the real sense, the policy was used to cut down the laundry cost of the hotel. This was what made J. Westerveld begin the greenwashing time. So next slide, please. Forms of greenwashing. We have many forms of greenwashing. So we have imply and deny. This is a deceptive in the sense that companies will hint at an environment benefit to get consumers interested in the company product or service, and yet to be obscure about the certain elements like how the product is made and the effects that the product is going to release on the environment. Also, we have misleading imagery, whereby the companies, they use different kind of images that portrays nature to advertise their product, to make it attractive to consumers, to make it look eco-friendly, whereas the products are not eco-friendly. We have so others to like green by association, token efforts. So next slide, please. The intended benefits and proven success in reducing carbon emission through greenwashing. So first one, we have to help companies identify greenwashing mistake, which has led to a more sustainable reduction in carbon emissions. To lead many businesses to focus on becoming more eco-friendly by reducing waste, cutting emissions, recycling, and using renewable energy. Also, to raise consumer awareness and discussing them from purchasing high carbon. Next slide, please. Reasons why greenwashing have been termed a false solution. Truly, greenwashing is a false solution because it misleads the public by making them believe that the company or the entity is doing more to protect the environment than it is. Greenwashing promotes false solution to climate crisis. Next slide, please. Is greenwashing a factual or a false solution? Truly, greenwashing is a two-sided coin. It has both a dark side and a white side. It is factual in the sense that it helps in a slow transition to sustainability, and it is also a false solution due to the firms adopting it as a rapid escape from sustainability. As you can see from the image, the image has two colors, that is the green side and also the dark side. The green side is that they believe halfly, or let me say, they believe that the product is eco-friendly, and the other side, they believe that no, they just have to sell their products. The next slide, please. So here is a table illustrating the dark side and the white side of greenwashing. The dark side, which is a rapid escape from sustainability, whereby firms don't want to adopt green technologies to fact. All the claims are 100% false. Firms seem not to be green in short term and long term. Also, in the white side, where we have a slow transition in technologies. Also, claim are 10 to 40% true. Also, firms have some green elements, but not enough. So firms see greenwashing as a short-term adaptation strategy. So my fellow greenies, let's raise our voices. Let's take a stand against greenwashing with united hands, for in authentic sustainability, we find our way to a future where our planet can truly stay. And at this junction, I would like my fellow co-presenter to take over. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Zainab. My name is Kuda Sainla. Standing on the already existing protocol, I would like to continue from where she stopped. To combat greenwashing, we should not just take the words of companies for it. We should go deeper and make more informed choices. I would like to start from the analysis of the effect of greenwashing. There are quite a number of negative effects of greenwashing, among which are damage to brand reputation, loss of consumer trust. If a company engages in greenwashing and misleads the consumer, it will eventually the consumer find out. It will be a damage to the brand's reputation, and people are less likely to support the brands. Also, outcomes of greenwashing to climate change. We have diverting attention from critical issues. When companies get involved in greenwashing, they may create the illusion that they are taking significant steps towards sustainability, while actually they are not doing so. So they are diverting attention from the actual environmental problems. We also have eroding trust in genuine environmental initiatives, wasteful resources use, deceptive marketing practices. Next slide, please. Sustainable design for environmental protection. This is the part where we're taught in the course of our GSA, and we believe that if every one of us go out and make changes to the world, it will become a better place. One of the sustainable plans for environmental protection is reduction in the volume of solid waste, lower air pollution, formulation and enforcement of policies that foster a sustainable ecosystem, such as encouraging the 3 R's that we were taught in class: refuse, reduce, and reuse. In comparing with other GESAG's events, taking geoengineering for example, greenwashing harm trust and reputation, while geoengineering poses risk and ethical dilemmas. Next slide, please. Solutions to combat climate crisis include investing in more renewable energy companies, implementing a national or state planting day, among others. Next slide, please. Conclusion. Greenwashing poses a significant challenge to efforts aimed at promoting sustainable environment. We should be the change we wish to see in the world by nurturing and protecting our precious earth together. We learned yesterday that climate change is real. There is no better time to take action than now. Let us join hands to combat for solutions and get more authentic and genuine. Remember that there is no planet B. Let's take both individual and collective action to take care of our dear Mother Earth. It all begins with each every one of us. Like our G Sam Adebisi Balki said, the impossibility of a perfect world is not an excuse not to try. On a final note, through collective actions and commitment, we can strive towards a more transparent and responsible, sustainable future for our planet. Will you join us to make a difference today? Thank you to our GSAM members and our amazing GSAMs and our personal GSAM who watch our back. Thank you to Plug in Nigeria for giving us this opportunity. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. Now, the next GSAG, are you ready? Please reply me. Nature-based solution, are you ready? Aisha, Shuaib, if you can speak, please speak up now.
All right.
You'll be okay. You'll be starting by 9:39, so get ready. This some gift. Kindly share your screen. Just chill. By when it's 9:39, you start. Aisha.
All right, ma.
Yeah. You can start now. You have the floor.
All right. The solution is simple. Nature is the key. Plants, animals, and ecosystem can set us all free. If we work together and let nature be, we'll find the answer in the leaves of a tree. Good evening, our GSAM host and co-host, fellow students of the GREENSWITCH Academy. Permit me to bring you into the context of nature. Next slide. So we are on the nature-based solution. I'll bring it to the concept of nation-based solution. So the concept of nature-based solution has its roots in the recognition of the value of ecosystem services and the role of nature in sustaining human well-being. Of course, we know nature plays a lot of significant role in sustaining our well-being. History. Nature-based solution can be traced back to traditional practices and indigenous knowledge systems, where communities have long relied on natural resources and ecosystem services to meet their needs and adapt to environmental changes. Of course, these nature-based solutions can be traced back to the traditional days where our forefathers used firewood gotten from nature. Even now, I don't know, still use firewood with the increase in gas and everything, but it is traced back to the traditional system. Let's type it. So based continuing this, I will talk about the IUCN and NBS, the International Union for Conservation of Nature World Congress in 2024 explored the theme of nature, which highlighted the importance of nature to enhancing societal resilience. It introduced the idea of nature-based solution as a means of dealing with challenges linked to climate change, sustainable energy, food security, and economic and social development. Since 2013, NBS have been made a priority program area for the IUCN, who states nature-based solutions build upon the proven contribution of well-managed and diverse ecosystems to enhance human resilience and to provide additional development opportunities for men and women in poor communities. Next slide, please. All right, next slide. So intended benefits and some proven successes through the GSTAG. The first one, we have enhancing sustainable urbanization. This can stimulate economic growth as well as improving the environment, making cities more attractive and enhancing human well-being. Like, look at the right side of this slide, can zoom it. You see that area. You see how pretty. This is one of the functions of one of the sources of nature restoration through the GSAGs, creating attractive cities. The second one, restoring degraded ecosystem. This can improve the resilience of ecosystem, enabling them to deliver vital ecosystem services and also to meet other societal challenges. Next slide, please. So the third one, developing climate change adaptation and mitigation. This can provide more resilient responses and enhance the storage of carbon. The fourth one, increase risk management and resilience. This can lead to greater benefits than conventional methods and offer synergies in reducing multiple risks. Next slide, please. So I'll continue more on the benefit and successes of nature-based solutions to reduce carbon emissions through the GSAG. One, urban green infrastructure. Cities around the world are increasingly investing in green infrastructure, such as parks, green roads, and urban forests to mitigate urban island effects, improve air quality, manage stormwater, and enhance overall urban resilience. Of course, we know that trees generate oxygen for us to breathe and takes our waste as carbon dioxide. In most cities, I know, we breathe in carbon exude, we breathe in smokes and the like. Planting trees makes it easy to filter those bad gases away from our environment. The second one is mangrove restoration. Mangrove restoration projects are proven successful in coastal areas by providing coastal protection, mitigating the impact of storms and tsunamis, sequencing carbon, and supporting biodiversity. Next slide, please. 3, agroforestry. Agroforestry practices integrate trees and shrubs into agricultural landscapes, improving soil health, enhancing biodiversity, increasing carbon sequestration, and providing additional income sources for farmers. The examples are here. Most farmers have adopted agroforestry techniques to improve food security and resilience to climate change. 4, ecosystem-based adaptation. It involves using biodiversity and ecosystem services to help people adapt to the adverse effects of climate change. EBA involves using biodiversity and ecosystem services to help people adapt to the adverse effects of climate change. Reforestation and forest restoration. Of course, deforestation. Plant
What is going on?
planting of trees have been successful in recovering degraded earth services, which demonstrates the potential of large-scale forest restoration. Thank you, please. I would love to. Right, the next presenter.
Jisan Ramas, kindly unmute host Jennifer. Pending that time, Aisha Shuabi, if you can continue, please do. Because
I'll continue.
Okay.
So reasons why some have accused NVS name as the false solution. 1. Empty premises. Although nature-based solutions are often presented as a panacea for environmental problems with no solutions applied, critics claim that this solution may avoid most significant changes in policies and practices. Most people believe that it gives empty premises. The second one, violation of indigenous rights. There are concerns that nature-based solution can lead to the violation of indigenous rights. 3. Corporate greenwashing. Some companies may use nature-based solution as a marketing tool to create an illusion of sustainability while continuing harmful practices. Because the aim of those companies is just practice. They're not. 4. Inadequate training. Some people believe that this solution failed to address the underlying systemic issues and the need for transformative changes in the society. 5. Insufficient scale and impact. Some argue that while the nature-based solution can be effective at a local level, they may not be sufficient to tackle global issues such as climate change. Well, they are wrong. Please, next slide, please. The next slide. So, objective group opinion as to whether NVS is indeed a false solution. The previous slide. I don't think that nature-based solutions are unimportant or unnecessary. Nature-based solution can create employment. Next slide, please. Okay, I'll just continue from here. Nature-based solution can provide employment opportunities, promote sustainable tourism and agriculture. And though the present scale of effect of nature-based solution in mitigating carbon emission might not be very large, if it is practiced widely, if everybody practices it, it will definitely transform ecosystem and play a huge role in developing sustainable health. And as the saying goes, don't despise the days of little beginnings. It's little beginnings that get large, of course. Please, the next slide, please. So, I'll talk about the recommendations. Nature-based solution helps cities manage climate hazards and offer other benefits like improved health and job creation. Here is how your city can adapting to various climate changes. We know in Nigeria now, we are really facing an hot climate. There is like a desert. Most cities are already experiencing early impacts of climate change, such as extreme heat, storm, drought, and others, which are guaranteed to get worse even if we limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees. Adapting to these changes deliver vastly better social and economic outcomes than dealing with this course of disaster. Thank you all for listening to our presentation. Thank you. All right, I'll pass over to the next presenter.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. The next GSAC to present, who is representing you? It is net zero that is next. Who is representing you? GSAM Chris, kindly co-host Annie now.
Hey guys, good evening. I'm so grateful being here. This is Net Zero Carbon Offset and Trading GISAG, and Nasanga Hanin representing. Yeah, first of all, we chose the color green to symbolize our harmony, growth, and nature. And if you look at the context of sustainable future, we really had to represent the balance between environmental preservation and human progress. So choosing the color green really signified a commitment to eco-friendliness, and we have to practice the practices that emphasize the need for harmonious coexistence so that we are able to have a good planet for generations to come. So next slide, please. Yes, I would love all of us to follow the agenda. We would look at the introduction, the definition, how does the carbon credit works, the benefits and successes of reduction of carbon emissions through the net zero carbon offsets and trading. Then we also have number 3 as reasons why net zero carbon offsets and trading has been termed as a false solution. Number 4 is net zero. Okay, pardon me. Is net zero carbon offsets and trading really a false solution? Then, and lastly, we shall actually look at the real life recommendations that can be employed with the net zero carbon offsets and trading corporations in combating climate crisis. The next slide, please. Okay, so here we come. This is the gist of the whole sense. First of all, we're going to look at what net zero refers to. I believe this is a balance between the amount of greenhouse gas, the GHG, that's produced, and the amount that's removed from the atmosphere. Yeah, we have to understand that it can be achieved through a combination of emissions reduction and emissions removal. So reaching here, the net zero really requires a lot of balance of the amount of greenhouse gases we emit of the amount which removes when what we add is no more than what we have to take away. So if we look at the carbon offsets and trading, it is also known as the carbon credits, which permit or allow the greenhouse gases to have entities that can compensate for their emissions by supporting projects elsewhere that reduce, avoid, and remove where companies receive credits to emit up to. Guys, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry. So we have to make sure that we understand that this mechanism really operates in a way that cap and trade programs where there is a decreasement over time. There is also a sale of excess credits to their companies through providing a financial incentive to produce emissions. Then we also have to look at the proponents argue that carbon credits really lead to measure emissions reductions through certified climate projects. The system also originates from the need to have a different model used to reduce sulfur pollution. So here, negotiators really have to have a glass goal. If you look at the COP26 summit in 2021, there was an agreement that led to an establishment of a global carbon offset trading market. Next slide, please. Yeah, so then we have to look at how do carbon credits work. If you look at the ultimate goal here, there is a need for carbon credits to all have the reduction of emissions in the greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So as noted earlier on, a carbon credit represents the right to emit greenhouse gas to also have an equivalent of a ton of carbon dioxide. So according to the Environmental Defense Fund, there was a statement that had to have it all with an equivalent of 400 miles driven in terms of carbon dioxide emissions. Companies or nations were allocated to a certain number of credits
that would have been traded from maybe having a balance of total worldwide emissions. So since carbon dioxide is the principal greenhouse gas, there was a United Nations note that came in to have been spoken out loudly, which helps to simply help the trading of what? Of our carbon, the carbon emission, which was intended to also reduce. Okay, excuse me. I think my slides are either mixed up or something. Okay, so however, we can also have the Choto, and we can also talk about the Choto carbon market unveiled in 2012 carbon offsets, which took off largely and created voluntary markets with the carbon markets making their own way in Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. So we shall have the number one as the early theoretical foundation, 1970s to 1980s, which had a theoretical foundation for emissions trading, which can be traced back in academic work of the 1970s and 1980s. Economists here, like Ronald Coase, explored the idea of property rights and the... Okay, so I'm just going to have a bullet. Number two, acid rain programs, 1980s. Then we had an introduction of the Global Climate Agreements, 1990s, Kyoto Protocol, the 1997, and the expansion of the European Union, which was current in 2005. Next slide. Okay, then we also had the corporate adoption of the net zero target in 2010 to date. That also evolved around the evolution of the Global Climate Agreement, which came up to from 2000 to date. Next slide, I need to sum up. So we then look at the benefits of net zero carbon offsets and trading, whereby we have the mitigating of the consequences of climate emergency and cutting carbon emissions. We also have developing new industries and jobs to generate economic possibilities and boost the economy, keeping the public healthy by maintaining adequate air quality and lowering morbidity and death, advancing fairness to the environment. Then we also have the energy security and resilience can be increased by reducing dependence on fossil fuels and diversing energy sources, protecting the natural resources such as soil, water, and the natural resources as well. And we also have number 7 as assuring the security of the food, minimizing the likelihoods of the natural disasters, including floods and droughts or even storms. Next slide. Next one, please. Okay, then if you look at the successes are also underlined under the Denmark's green culture, which was established via the usage of wind turbines. Then we also had the Norway, where was a rank of a globally marked environmental protection index. Sorry. Switzerland, where there was a model green nation with many of its environmental accomplishments based on the net zero, using a car filter to reduce carbon petrol emissions, among others. Next slide. Then the reasons also go as below, but if you look at the reasons, actually, they also kind of like term up as the successes. So if you look at the reason where they're talking about carbon offsets having a hard measure, and then also trying to have an invest in the renewable energy, I think that really coordinates well. Then we also had that most carbon offset schemes don't really last, especially reforestation projects, whereby we have so many examples around us where people will plant trees today and then tomorrow they are actually cut off to do other things. Then you also have like the carbon offsetting, where there is often a use of an excuse to not having reduction in the emissions of which is actually unfortunately seen as something that many of our free pass are not even focusing on reducing emissions. Then many carbon offset schemes transfer responsibilities to low emitters. Yeah, they do not know who is supposed to do what. And then by the end of the day, things are really mixed up, hence losing track. Then we also have the net zero carbon offset and trading, which shows a clear intent of balancing. Okay.
Thank you so much for that presentation. And thank you all. Now I'll be handing you over to the GSAM in charge. Rafiat, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Gisam Baltiz, for taking over the session. And thank you to all our presenters. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. Now we'll move back to our WhatsApp group so that we can round up for tonight, and by tomorrow we'll be getting our results. Ensure to work on your articles, as we have to make the submission by tomorrow. So kudos to everyone and well done for the job. And thank you to our judges for taking out your time to be on this call with us. Thank you. We really appreciate. Please kindly appreciate the judges on the chat box. And thank you, all the GSAMs on the call. Please help me to appreciate all these GSAMs for their time and their hard work. Thank you very much. We really appreciate. Kindly appreciate them on the group chat, please. And while we are done doing that, let's move to the WhatsApp so that we can round up quickly as we are far behind schedules. Thank you very much once again, our judges. Thank you, GSAMs. Thank you, GGSAM. Thank you, everyone. So let's move quickly to our WhatsApp group so that we can round up. We are far behind schedules. Thank you all.